Hello and welcome back to another video. Now as you can see, I've got a new MacBook. Now this is not a new MacBook, but it's a new to me MacBook. The smallest MacBook Air, or MacBook in general, Apple ever produced. It's the 11-inch MacBook Air. It's the last of the line, the early 2015, and it suits me quite well. Now I've got my M1 MacBook Air and it's brilliant, but I wanted something quite disposable. I could just chuck about, taking car with me, you know, if it gets damaged, I don't care. Now for the just over 50 quid I paid for it, it's a steal. There's a few knocks and scratches, like here, but overall it's a great machine. Now in anticipation of getting this, I wanted a Windows laptop as well, and with macOS removing boot camp because of the change to ARM architecture, are a bit stuffed. So this will also serve as my Windows machine. Now it's a 5th gen i5, so it's not the best, but I only want it to do some car stuff. Some programs that aren't available for my car, for macOS, so I have to get a Windows machine for that. Now, to do that, the measly 128GB SSD in here ain't gonna cut it. I could scrape by, but for the price the SSDs are, I might as well. For 30 quid, a 512GB SSD, job's a good one. I've got all the space I could ever need on this machine. And while I'm in there, I might as well swap the battery out. Now I've received it today, I've checked the battery, and cycles wise it's on 121. So I'm not actually that concerned about the battery, but I've got the part now, I might as well swap it. I've never actually taken one of these apart before. I did own an 11-inch early 2013, so it's the same model, just a 4th gen i5 instead of a 5th, but it should be straightforward. I've got a bit what looks almost identical, but I don't think it's right. I think the bit what was right for this is worn out on my set, like I've stripped it. So I'm just going to have to chance it with this. So that's all the screws removed. And in an ideal world, it should be as simple as just removing the bottom. There we are, it's quite dusty, not too bad. It's amazing how small they get these. Even these old Intel machines, I mean this machine's 10-year-old this year, and other than being filthy, it's fine. Now that's the SSD. Before we do anything, I do need to turn it off. Now before I start playing with the SSD, ideally I should get the battery disconnected, just to really prevent anything going wrong. Now this machine's only got 4GB of RAM, but it's a bit of a limiting factor with them, and it's soldered RAM, so there's no what you can do about it. And while it has got an i5, they were optionable up to an i7, but that's soldered as well. So essentially the only upgrade path is the SSD and the battery. Well, battery's not an upgrade, it's a maintenance item. So with the looks of it, they're the same size screws as what we used on the external. So it should be as simple as unscrewing and then removing the battery. Well, that's a roadblock. These screws are bigger. It just spins loosely in there. That bit of the battery's cracked. with this screw, should be able to remove the battery, and it's really as simple as that. So that's gone. So I've got the new battery out. It came with the right screwdriver. I should have just used this. Just gonna get that back in. Now it's an aftermarket battery, but who cares? It's an battery, and while it probably won't be, that's the wrong bit. They've sent with it. No worries, I've got my own. Always got to be careful. After years of working in IT, I find that these MacBooks are very soft screws. They're far too easy to thread. I swear Apple do it on purpose just to, mess with your head. And the problem is, in the IT world at least, MacBooks are seen as somehow superior to Windows machines, value-wise. Even if the MacBook is actually worth far less, it can be a 10-year-old MacBook you've still got in deployment. What's worth, 50, 60, 70 quid on eBay, but because it's a MacBook, they treat it better than they do £600 brand new Dells. I think it's just the Apple tax. Obviously, if it's a new MacBook versus £600 Dell, you're going to value the MacBook higher. It's all money wise, but sometimes logic doesn't follow money in business. I've got all stuck in it now. Final part. Now, I'm not going to connect the battery yet, because there's this, the SSD. On another note, I've just realised the toolkit actually came with the right screwdrivers. They were hidden under all rubbish, packing rubbish. So the battery came with the right stuff. Now removing that SSD. There we are. It's amazing how they could have had it as an M.2 SSD, but no. They decided not to. Their own proprietary method. This would have been even cheaper to do. Not much cheaper, but cheaper. So, here we are. The 512 gig SSD. It's not quite like an M.2 SSD. I was trying to treat it like one then. They put it in at an angle and then push it down, and really this needs sliding in across. Slightly angled upwards. I've never actually upgraded an SSD on a MacBook. Well, one of the M.2 style ones. Obviously I've upgraded SATA SSDs before. I think that's on the channel actually, when I did that 2010 I believe, white MacBook. So it's been put in, and then it just needs some way of jamming this down. There we are. I'll do a quick power on test, then we can close it up. Please say it's got charge in it. Yep, it's got power in it. That's enough for me. I'll just check the dust while I'm here. Is it dusty? No, it's not. Not too bad. Not worth dusting. I did notice the fans weren't heavy at all. It's amazing to think an old Broadwell Intel chip on a laptop, normal Windows laptop, it'd be screaming its arse off on Windows 11. This quiet, and I know it's not the latest Mac OS, but a few versions out of date were not too bad. Monterey. So I think that's 22 or 23. So not too out of date. I think it still gets security patches. So the two biggies. first. And then from memory, they're all the same. They might not be identical, but they look the same, so it's enough for me. It's one thing I don't like about repairing MacBooks. The screws have to be put in at an angle, or because they're part of the flush rounding. It's ever so slight angle. It's not too hard to do face on. Sometimes when you forget about that, you do them wrong and they're a bit wonky and then they jut out, and then when it's on your lap you feel it. It don't hurt or anything, or you know, not too wrong with it. It's just an inconvenience, not be unnecessary. Because at the end of the day, these are designed to be serviced by IT teams, you know, barely over minimum wage first liners. They're designed to be serviced by Apple or never serviced at all. So there's some ups and downs to that. But when you are in the IT department trying to service one, look after it, maintain it, they can be a bit of a nightmare. Well, by the time these were starting to get decommissioned, you know, where when I first entered the IT industry, this sort of generation was at the point where if something went wrong and it needed maintenance or repair, they were normally getting binned. So that's why I've never touched one of these. It's been the later ones, the 17s, the 18s, the 19s, the 20s. And then I sort of moved off tools. You know, I'm not really dealing with stuff as trivial as laptops these days, so it's a nice refresher to get my hands dirty again. It's time for a new macOS install. So let's give it a go. First I'll dim the lights so you can see. Get the Wi-Fi password in. This may take a while. Now, I've never recovered a Mac from the internet. It's always just been easier to do it over USB, but I think today I'm feeling the internet method, I won't lie. So the internet reinstall tool didn't work. I've had to install High Sierra because it's the only macOS installer I've got, and I'm just gonna upgrade to Monterey. But before I do that, you can see we've got 500 gigs of SSD storage now on the little MacBook. It's great to see. There we are. You can jump straight from Big Sur to macOS Monterey. No issues there. So that failed as well. So now I've got Big Sur installed. I've booted into Internet Recovery and installing that way, and this seems to be running. So I'm going to leave it to run and see what happens. So this is a few weeks later. I've got this lovely little case for it, and it's been a brilliant little second machine. Monterey's installed perfectly fine, with no issues. And a nice 512 gig of storage. That's all I could want. Hold on while it boots up. So we're logged into macOS Monterey with no issues. As you can see. It's 500 gigabytes of storage free. So as you can see, we've got 3 cycles on the battery. Now, this Chinese battery, it may be a remanufactured battery, what's had the firmware reset, or it might actually be a real battery, well, a real new battery, knockoff third party thing. Now, at least it says it's got 3 cycles on it. that's myself. I did check, there was 0 when I first put it in, but the battery life's about 3-4 hours, what for a MacBook of this age is quite good. The OEM battery, when it were brand new, will have had a lot longer of battery life, but that's likely due to the fact that macOS is stressing this poor little machine. Monterey's a lot newer than the machine, so when Monterey was the latest operating system, this machine was on its end of its life, so the machine wasn't designed to be running that sort of high demand software. But overall it's a brilliant little machine, and while not as snappy as my M1 Mac, it does the job for a cheap disposable machine like I wanted. Now I may film a proper review, scripted, rather than this off-the-cuff sort of style. Who knows? But for now, that's it. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in another video. Also, by the way, if you like this sort of content, I do have a few other MacBook videos on my channel, and I'm planning to do some other videos on Macs, such as just bought a PowerBook, so I'm waiting for that to arrive, and I'll be making a video on that when it comes.